here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week, it's going to be the turn of Stephen Hunking, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry, and all that other groovy stuff. Was in various bands over the years and decades, including Hypnolovewheel, which was a mid-80s New York City band, who've now got a compilation that has just come out, which I'll put a link in the notes below so you'll be able to find out more about Parallel Universe, a career-spanning overview of the band's beloved blend of garage, rock, post-punk, power punk, pop and psychedelia. Anyway, this is the interview, so after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Stephen, it's over to you.
Well, you know, I had an older brother and sister by a considerable amount because I was kind of an unplanned, I was like an accident basically, right? So my sister was 10 years older, my brother is 7 years older. So, you know, they went through all that British invasion like first time through.
Right,
so a lot of Beatles growing up in my house. But the thing that really just shook me, and I had to be just about 6 years old, was hearing Time of the Season by the Zombies.
Brilliant.
And it did something to my brain. I really did. Like I remember feeling just a physical feeling, deeply physically related to that song as a kid. So that probably kicked off
Time of the Season, which was from that classic album, wasn't it? Odyssey and Oracle.
Odyssey and Oracle. Yeah.
Which they'd sort of made, then split up and went, well, that's the end of that. And then
So weird, right?
Decades later, people like Paul Weller started saying, that's my favourite album. And people go, oh, yeah, it's mine. And they were going, really? We can't really, you know, so
right, like
it was kind of decades later, and then they were sort of reformed, I think, and then played it live.
Yeah.
I've done a few interviews with dear old Colin Bluntstone, which was quite sweet. But it's funny.
He's really delightful, I think.
He is so delightful and so sweet and still going strong, actually, I think. He's, you know,
his voice still sounds great.
Yes, he's still putting it out there. It's interesting because during that period, I mean, you talk about sort of songs that had a big impact, but there was also ones like, there was a song called Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks. And then there was another one, which was Harry Nilsson's I Can't Live If Living Is Without You. And they're very dramatic. And I mean, I probably was only about 8 or 10 at the time, but those songs were just very, I don't know, they had a big punch to them because there was like a sadness. There was a romantic melancholia that featured through them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's funny because I think for a kid in the US, like the British like ruled the airwaves in the early 70s, you know?
Yes.
Like there was a lot of stuff. I mean, there was a lot of American bands and Creedence and all that stuff, but like, you know, the Rolling Stones and like and Led Zeppelin and T-Rex and
well, yes, actually, it was funny because I'm the youngest of three, and there was a real gap of 7 years and 5 years, and then me. I was more. I don't know if I was unplanned or they wanted a girl because they had two boys, and then when I came along, I think it was like, okay, let's never try another one. But I mean, it was kind of weird because I think the first two had all the kind of, you know, how to bring up the baby by a particular person called Dr. Spock, you know, about feeding.
Oh yeah,
times.
sure. Yep.
Not the one from Star Trek, but the other Dr. Spock.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. I'm aware of that book. Yeah.
And then when I came along, I think they just went, look, we're fine. We haven't killed the other two. He'll just have to get on with it. And so, yes, I had a certain, though I'm one of three, it still felt like I was a bit of they'd gone to school before I was, you know, like, so I was on my own quite a lot, just getting my own way, apparently.
Like an only child in a way, right?
Slightly, yes.
Slightly, yeah. I had that experience.
But yes, I spent a lot more time, I suppose, listening. My mum used to have Radio 2 on, which was like easy listening. So I think I got really obsessed with like Burt Bacharach and the Carpenters and people like that. which I thought were
Yeah.
just incredible. So I was a little bit too young for punk, but did punk sort of come onto your radar at all?
Well,
I know we're the same age, but I felt a
yeah.
bit like it wasn't quite there. My brothers definitely weren't into punk at all.
Yeah, right. My brother, yeah, they were not to punk, although, for them, punk might be like dipping their toe into the water with like the first Joe Jackson record or the
Elvis
Cars
Cost
or something, less new wave and maybe seem more
Elvis
adventurous.
Costello, you know.
Yeah, Elvis Costello, right? Which are all like just fantastic pop records, like beautiful, beautiful records. But I think because of the proximity to the city, New York City, like I was aware that there was this thing going on with CBGBs. I was aware that there were bands there, and I probably knew it because my brother would have like Cream magazine, and there'd be a picture of like the Dead Boys in it or something, and I'm like,
Right.
who are these weirdos? Like it was so strange to me. But so, but I was pop. I was pop, like that point in my life, like when I was like 12, I was probably at the height of like my Beatle loving self, which I think, is a pretty common, lowest common not lowest common denominator. And Beatles fantastic, but like,
Did the
you know,
monkeys come onto your radar though in the
oh,
book?
oh yeah, don't get me started on the Monkees, man. That's the music of my childhood.
Yes, and the banana splits.
Yeah, yeah. So like those sort of things, like in a weird way, kind of informed Hypnolovewheel because like it was just embedded in our DNA. Like when we got together as a band, like these were things. Um, when we were looking for a drummer, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leapfrog.
That's all
I didn't
right.
mean to leapfrog, but I just went off on this thing in my head when we were looking for a drummer. Like I put up a sign and I was like, can you play like Mickey Dolenz or Danny Partridge from the Partridge
Oh,
Family or
the
you know
partridge.
and like Multi, from that crazy song by the Barbarians, the drummer from the 60s who had the hook hand, like I was into all these kind of like at that point 60s stuff kind of ruled my imagination and not necessarily the music impacted me in the sense of like pop songs, but
Yeah.
I just think there was something about this idea that a band could also be this really fun thing. Like it could be like, you're hanging out with your buddies and you're like having these ridiculous adventures. And I mean, in a certain kind of way, it's true because
Yes, you're a gang, you're a
yeah,
tribe. Yes. I mean, well,
yeah, you're a tribe,
it
right?
all happened. So what was the first single and first album you bought?
Oh, the first single. So the that's a funny story. I had received $5 for a birthday gift and I hid it in a teapot and I forgot about it. And a couple of years later, when I was about 8, I found it and my brother quickly confiscated it and said, I'm gonna buy you the best rock and roll record ever.
Right.
And I said, okay. And he came back with Grand Funk Railroad Survival, which I don't know if it's the best rock record ever, but it was my rock record. So I
Mm.
loved it. But I think really he loved it more than me. So it wasn't a choice. Like it wasn't a record that you know, I I bought on my own.
Yes.
I would imagine the first rock record I probably bought was probably Revolver, I think.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, yeah, because somebody had they got me the Beatles Red Album for like
Oh, yes, the two.
my 13th birthday, and I was like, oh, I want to hear more of this. And I had remembered it from when I was a kid, but like Revolver might as well have been a new record to me because I didn't know. I knew a couple of songs off of it, right? But not
Yeah.
some of the deeper cuts.
Well,
So
I guess because my brother, who's 7 years older, a great story. He was that generation who was into prog rock, so he had all those.
sure.
But he also had a few heavy metal. He had Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, but he also had Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and also Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah,
And at the time, they had no cultural context. I mean, it was just like,
right.
this was the early to mid 70s. So
Right,
the
right.
Beatles, I mean, it's strange to think the Beatles had only just broken up, isn't it? You know, when we were
Yeah, yeah,
sort of 10, 11 at the time, they hadn't been,
yeah.
you know, and then sort of getting this record and playing it and being, you know, like discovering all these songs and then turning over and listening to side two and being obsessed with a track called Good Morning, which was on side two. And I thought,
Oh, absolutely.
that was, and then same with the last track on side four of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which was a number called Harmony, which I just think is
Yeah.
just stunning. So there was those ones which were there, you know, that was,
Oh, yeah.
it
And
was,
then there would have been, I think around the same time as Yellow Brick Road, I remember my sister getting Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of
oh
Life, another double
yes.
album with a single in it.
Yeah.
And
And I'm
it was
still annoyed that my
extraordinary.
brother didn't sort of have more. Like there were so many other genres, you know, like the whole sort of
Right,
Laurel Canyon scene, or you know, there was a, you
right,
know, I mean, I understand he was never going to be into punk because he became
right,
a
right,
accountant and
right.
believed in the system very passionately.
Yeah.
But he could have just sort of brought Neil Young or Joni Mitchell or Carole King or you know just any of
Yeah.
that. You know, it's like God, you know, all those great records. You know.
We had
And
a
when
lot
you
of that, I have to say. Yeah.
you know, each year when you look at just those popular records of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
period, it's like, oh Christ,
But
and yet we had Yes and Genesis.
well, I was gonna say not to knock any of those bands, but there was also that Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Kansas and
Oh,
all
lovely.
those bands sat side by side with those other records that we're just talking about. So I think as a kid, I I kind of just absorbed it all. I think it's like for me, becoming a teenager, it's all about your identity, right? And then
Yes.
suddenly someone, you know, y- I mean, I was older than that, actually. It was probably like 17 or something when this album, Let Them Eat Jelly Beans, came out. My buddy Dave and I were chatting about this, or I heard him talking about it on another podcast. And it was all these bands like Dead Kennedys, the pre-polished Go-Go's, I don't know, you name it. A lot of SST bands probably on
Yes.
there. Bands that I wouldn't even know who they are because they were kind of a flash in the pan. But I
So what?
remember like you hear that and suddenly you're like, oh, all this other music is rubbish, it's trash. I'm
Yes.
not
Well, it seemed
interested.
quite dated, didn't it? Really, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Like I
And
never want to hear ELO again, which is funny because I'm obsessed with ELO now, but like
oh yes, I know. That we did. Yes, I know. It's sort of funny, isn't it? Really. Do Ya? There was a song called Do Ya by ELO, which I
oh,
thought
absolutely the
I just
best.
it is just amazing. Yeah. But there was also other albums that always were there. War of the Worlds was a double album that appeared in people's record
Sure.
collections. And also, you know, Frampton Comes Live was another
Yeah.
classic, which was there, which
The
again
talk
you
box. Yeah.
fantastic. Who didn't want one of them? And then, you know, poor old Pete. Yeah, from Humble
Yeah.
Pie and all that to
Yeah.
suddenly,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Right.
poor old boy. So what was the first gig you went to?
Well, that's a funny story too, because when I was really young, my brother and sister, again, being much older, and in Central Park, there used to be the Schaefer Music Festival. And somehow, when I was in first grade, they convinced my mom to let them take me to see Edgar Winter.
God, that's
And
fantastic, isn't it?
yeah, and he did that crazy gimmicky hit, Frankenstein, the one where it's like, da 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 da. And as a kid, I couldn't, I had my little brownie camera, and I was like taking pictures, and I could smell, I can smell all this marijuana in the air because I
Yes, I
knew
would
what
imagine
that
you
was
could
for
have
my
got
brother and sisters. But
indirectly stoned at
yeah,
the same time. God,
yeah.
but what was your sort of which you weren't with your family? Did you go to a particular gig with your friends?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So later on, meeting Dave in junior high, I guess going into high school, we both transplanted out to Long Island from the like kind of New York area, New York City area. And we went to see Yes with Trevor Raven with Donovan opening at Madison Square Garden.
Donovan opening for Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Crikey.
And no pun intended, but yeah, so it was really thrilling because I was like, I don't think I understood Donovan was going to be opening for Yes. And then I start
No.
hearing all these songs like Mellow Yellow and like Season of the Witch. And I'm like, I know all these songs from when I was,
Right.
they're ingrained in my brain from my brother and sister.
God,
Um,
that's extraordinary, really. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Daryl Donovan at that stage. I mean, he suppose he'd slightly lost his way, but I remember there was an album called "Is It From a Gift, a Flower, a Gift from a Flower to a Garden,"
yeah,
and
yeah,
that one, which yeah, there was one particular album I really liked. But I had a particular friend who absolutely adored Donovan, really. But yeah,
yeah.
and was that Yes when they had Trevor Horn and Buggles?
I think it was. I think it had to be, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering like if that was still it was pre that. It must have been pre that. The
Did
reason
they?
why I'm conflating is because Dave got, I think it was called Tormato, the Yes
Oh,
album that suddenly
Tomato,
went,
or yes, I
yeah,
called it Tomato, but yes,
Tomato, right, right. That kind
yes.
of went new wave, right?
Yeah, it
I
was a bit
am a
more snappy.
camera.
Songs, they managed to keep songs to only 5 minutes and not
Yeah.
9 minutes, which was
Yeah,
quite, yeah, quite. But I do
right.
remember that. I did have Don't Kill the World on it. Tomato.
I couldn't. I just all I remember is I am a camera, and I remember the album cover looking very kind of new wavy to my
Yes.
mind.
Well, there was, yeah, it was a bit odd. It wasn't particularly Trevor Horn anymore, was it?
No, no, and I mean the Buggles were huge too because MTV, right? That's like the first video that's
Oh
on
God, yes,
MTV.
that was massive, really. I mean, it was all
Yeah.
that was a strange thing when I came to America a few decades ago, and couldn't work out why A Flock of Seagulls was being
Oh
played.
yeah.
And it was like, oh well, there weren't that many videos, and they had one, so they just put it on heavy rotation. And
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Them and Devo.
it was a very popular song, and I kind of thought, yes, it was
Yeah.
a very one. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Tormato. Oh, it's Tormato. God, I haven't listened to it for ages, actually. Oh, it had "Don't Kill the World." Yes, that's the one,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Right.
And Release," which is another one I really like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, that was all right. It was.
It's fun, you know. I think I have more tolerance for it now, but there was definitely a point in my life where I was probably selling all my prog records and all my and records that I probably regret selling now, you know. But I was all about the punk, the new wave, the no wave
So,
singles.
so when you got to 16, which was 1980, did you leave school or did you continue on to college at that stage?
No, so in the States, you know, you go to high school until you're like 18. And I did go to art school in the city. I lasted about 3 months and just completely crashed and burned. And during that time, Dave, the guitar player from Hypno, and Dan, the bass player from Hypno, we had this high school band called the Plastic Device
Oh,
that started out as what we thought was a punk band kind of stance and quickly mutated into like a new wave thing and then kind of mutated into a garage rock 60s kind of weird rave up thing.
right,
You know, we were young and impressionable and just kind of following the zeitgeist of like what's everybody into, you know, and I guess like REM kind of comes up a little bit later in that towards the end of that band. But yeah, so we had this band Plastic Device and there was this crazy scene on Long Island when I was growing up. This band, the Mosquitoes, like wrote a song that the Monkees put out when they got back together. It was called That Was Then, This Is Now, written by Vance, who was in this local band, the Mosquitoes. So
oh,
we had this crazy, really like a teenage dream of like what it was like to be in a band because there were other bands around our age and older that all played at this place called Sparks. And like we'd play there and there'd be like 150, 100 people in the audience. So we had like a following in Long Island, but we just never broke out of that. I think we played in New York a couple of times.
right.
Um, Yeah, it used to be a place called the Dive, which the Flesh Tones would play at. So then we like found out about about the Flesh Tones, and then that was our obsession. We were like, the Flesh Tones are the best band ever. This is, we got to get a gig with them. Um,
And had you
And
started going to all the, like CBGBs and Max and
oh,
Spencer
sure,
City?
yeah. Yeah, and especially like once Hypnolovewheel forms, which is kind of out of the ashes of Plastic Device, and once we find our drummer Peter, who's from Connecticut, we all start. I mean, we were seeing shows before that, but then it's like, oh man, yeah, we'd go to CBGBs and see all sorts of cool local bands. Phantom Toll Booth. Went to one of the craziest shows I've ever seen in my life, which was the Butthole Surfers at CBGB's, and I thought they were going to set the place on fire. They were like holding like a torch, and it was licking the ceiling. You
Blimey,
know?
yes. This
And tables, they for some reason CBGB's they had tables down front that night, and the tables with these heavy metal bottoms are like flying over people's heads, and people were ducking, and it was like, and I was scared out of my mind, but I was so thrilled. I was like, I can't believe I'm in this ruckus. I mean, they had their dancer who is like a naked woman is painted in green, and she had a Fu Manchu mustache, which as like a teen, like a late teen boy, early 20s, I was like, I don't understand any of this.
no. I guess
I
I
could not wrap my head around it.
I think Hawkwind had a woman called Stacey who used to dance in quite a
Yeah.
naked fashion as well. So yes, it does keeps people excited, doesn't it, and engaged with the stage. So
Yeah.
it
Well, I
all
think the
helps.
Fu Manchu mustache confused. Like, I was like, is she a man? Like, I don't understand. Like, the just gender identity was completely like,
It was over, wasn't it?
yeah,
It was
yeah,
already
it was,
sexually fluid at that stage, wasn't
yeah, it was kind of cool and kind of interesting. So yeah, we'd see a
it?
lot of bands in New York. We played with a lot of different bands in New York.
So when did
Uh,
Hypno Love Wheel sort of kind of officially form then at that stage? Was that the sort of mid 80s or a bit later?
yeah, it's a little bit just past the mid 80s, right? So it'll probably be like 86.
Right.
We start playing, and we progressed really rapidly. Like, we found our drummer Peter from Connecticut because of that ridiculous flyer I made asking for all these goofy drummers, and we played, and I think within like a couple of months we put a single out, and then that got in this thing here called CMJ, which is a college music journal. So we started getting airplay, and then an older buddy of ours who used to be in a band that we loved when we were younger, a very influential guy, Eamon Bowles, um, said, "Hey, I want to put out your record." So he put it out, and then we got into Spin Magazine like right out of the gate. So, and it got a great review. So at that point, we're like, "Oh, I guess we're a band. Like, we're really doing this." Because
Yeah.
it wasn't our intention, I think. I think it was just we were fanboys who wanted to put a piece of vinyl out, and it just kept growing and growing. So Eamon put out the second record and financed it. And then from that, we got signed to Alias and did three
Right. So your
records.
first single was Next Week. Was
Yeah.
that was the first one? I mean,
Yeah. And
had
it's like
you
an EP. It's like it's got several songs on it. So I
it
guess it's,
has Next
yeah.
Week, Falling Out, Summer, Everything, Big Brown Biscuit.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. And
Yeah.
was that that's on Snatch-O-Matic
Yeah.
Records?
That's our own. So that's our own label. Snatch-O-Matic was it's not what you think. When we were in junior high, there was this kid who was kind of a bully, but we all kind of were like super impressed by him. And he would come to your cafeteria tray during lunch, and he would steal your food, and he would say "Snatch-O-Matic." And nobody ever would be like, "Okay, it's yours, I guess," because nobody wanted to take this guy on.
God, yes, happy days on that.
Yeah.
When did you first get a guitar and start playing, by the way? When was this kind of musical journey?
Yeah. So when I was really little, I wanted to be a drummer. My parents got me a snare drum when I was a kid, and because I was always banging on pots and pans, but I never progressed beyond that snare drum. But meanwhile, my brother got a guitar, so there was always a guitar around. and I would learn a couple of chords on it. And I always had songs in my head, but it wasn't until in the Plastic Device I was a singer, and I was like, this is not the gig I want because being a frontman is a lot of work. And I had song ideas, and I was like, I want to learn
Right.
how to play guitar. So Dave also was like, I want to learn how to play guitar. And he's kind of a genius of any instrument he picks up. He has a musical background, so he can kind of understand how it works. And we started playing guitars at the same time, which I guess is like a very punk thing to do because we're like, well, we're going to make sounds with these guitars and it's going to become music. And that's how we're going to do this. So I was probably about 18 when I started seriously playing the guitar. So I came to it pretty late.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you
And I
got
struggle to this day, but I love the struggle.
embrace
Yeah.
embrace it. It's a character building exercise. So
Yeah.
then you from the single, did you then get interest from this a label at that point?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was Fabian. And Fabian was our buddy Eamon, who used to be in a band called the Fabians, who had during the punk scene, they kind of had a little bit of success. They had a single out. They had gone out to the West Coast. They played a lot of big shows in New York. So they were like a known entity. And at one point, they showed up at the club on Long Island where my first band was playing. And we saw these guys and we were like, how did we never hear this band before? They're the greatest band we've ever seen in our lives. We really thought that. And I still, to this day, think they were an amazing band. And
Yes.
so Eamon liked what the Plastic Device was doing, and I guess he followed us, and we stayed in touch. And when we played him Hypnolovewheel stuff, he was like, "I want to put this out. I want to start a label and put this out." So
God. So then you did Turn Turn Burn, didn't you? This is your first
yeah, yeah,
album. Yes, and the music
yeah,
scene at that stage, this was kind of 88. I mean, it was kind of interesting because, we'd had that we had punk and post-punk, then there was New
Mhm.
Romantics, goth, there was psychobilly. There was
Right.
also New Paisley, wasn't there? Various bands from America
Oh,
created
sure, yeah, from the West
new,
Coast
and then
into
there
all
was
of
the
it.
kind of the great indie pop years, the Smiths with their,
Yeah,
which were there until 87 until they sort of finished. And then there was a bit of a dance scene that appeared and stuff. So what was
yeah.
it like for you? Because you mentioned there was bands like Sonic Youth, Butthole Surfers at that stage, Big Black.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of that Paisley Underground from California was definitely like the Rain Parade is one that comes to mind. Dream Syndicate was huge for
Dear old
us.
Steve Wynn,
Um,
yes.
yeah, and he's such a lovely guy too. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times, and he's just a real sweetheart. But I don't know why I threw that out there, other than I think he's just a really cool dude.
Yeah, he did a book
I
a few
wanted
years
to
ago.
share that.
Did you read his book?
I did. I did. I read his book and I saw him when he came through here last time, kind of performing it and talking about it. And he's a good raconteur. Like he's got a lot of fun stories to tell. And his book was pretty breezy. Like it it surprised me in a way, like how kind of sweet and honest and yeah, it seemed genuine. It didn't seem like somebody trying to make something of themselves that's not quite believable.
Yes. And when you
Yeah.
got just go back, when you got the album out, did you do a tour at this stage? Did you sort of
Oh, sure. Yeah.
were
We
you
did.
on the road?
Yeah, we somehow managed to get an old VW van and we somehow managed to, it might have been with the help of Eamon, but I think we were doing a lot of it. Like we would we'd find these other bands. There were a lot of indie bands. One of them was this band Scrawl that we really loved, and they probably won't even remember us, but we were very excited to get a gig with them. And they still play, I think, but they're just fabulous. And then so we would call these places, somehow we found out on the West Coast, like, oh, you could play the 930 Club, or there's Maxwell's out in New Jersey, and you got CBGB's in the city. And then if you go down to North Carolina, there's Cat's Cradle. And we would call these places and just try to stitch together a week of shows.
Right.
And
Yes.
no cell phones, right? So like if you're at work, like my buddy Dave was saying, like, he'd go out in the street on a payphone and on his lunch hour.
Well,
Like,
yes, this is how
yeah,
people used to do it. I know there was a woman
yeah,
called Tracy Thorn who was in Everything But the Girl, and when she
yeah,
was at
sure.
university, she talked about going to a phone box where Paul Weller was going to be phoning her,
Yeah,
and he'd had to just hope that no one was there,
yeah, yeah,
making a call at the time. But yes, we spent a lot of time at phone boxes with lots of 2p
yeah,
pieces.
yeah.
And yeah, the horrible smell of the phone box as well.
Right. It's hard
Um,
to imagine that that's the world
that's the way
we
it
used to
worked.
be.
So yeah, so
But
you started, and did you pick up quite an audience at this stage?
it depends where we played. Like, I think I think we had a bigger audience than we realized. I think when you're in a band, it's hard to really understand the success you have, I think, until years after, unless you have like a success that's like every show you play, the audience exponentially grows by like 100 people. You don't always witness, I think, your own
Yeah,
success. I mean, we wherever we played, we always played in front of people. We always went over well. Um, but there's not that immediate feedback, you know. So it's hard to really understand. Like, I think when we first started, we felt like, oh wow, we're doing great because we're playing all these shows, and now we got another record coming out after that, another record after that. So we felt really good. But at some point, I think we started to feel like, wow, we overstayed our welcome, or how come we didn't,
yeah,
like
because
how
you
come?
were rapid. You were doing because you brought out Turn Turn Burn, then Candy Mantra, which was
Yeah,
again on Fabian. And was that
yeah,
quite a similar experience writing material and going into the studio? Did you still feel
yeah.
exciting? You're still in the honeymoon phase here.
Oh, look, I think every record we recorded and any time we were recording was exciting because at the end of the day, you're doing a creative thing with people you love being creative with. So I think where it gets confusing is when, you know, and we didn't get a tremendous amount of pressure, but there was pressure definitely from the label, like the real label, Alias, that was like had more money. I don't know why I call them a real label. They're all real, right?
Yes.
But there was some things about like, oh, we don't know how we feel about this song, or well, for this record, it's really it's gotta do better, which I wasn't privy to any of this, but I kind of heard stories after the fact. I was pretty oblivious, but um
Right.
yeah.
So when you came to do Space Mountain, did you get a bit more money and
Yeah.
studio and
Yes.
producers, and did
Yeah.
it feel like a sort of a different league or leg up?
Well, yeah, it felt like we arrived because Alias was a California label. They were located in LA and San Francisco. And the woman who ran it, Delight, who I've recently reconnected with, for I can get into that later, but she, she had a lot of money to spend on this label. And it's one of the reasons we signed to them, because we were like, wow, we can actually have a budget
Well, yes.
that's like kind of unheard of. And I'm not talking about like a major label budget, but like, for an indie rock band, like our budgets were like pretty impressive. Um, so when we got that money, then we were like, well, where do we want to record? And we knew that, Fort Apache in Cambridge was like the place where like Dinosaur Jr. recorded, and Big Dipper and Lemonheads, and, all these Boston bands are recording there. So
Right. So it was very
yeah,
easy to make that choice. And did
yeah,
you have the creative process? How did that come together with the band? Did you all sort of work on material together, or did
yeah.
you sort of have did different people do different roles in the band?
Well, I think we all will say that it was an extremely democratic band, right? So what would happen is, I mean, probably Dan and I wrote the majority of the songs, but Dave and Peter also wrote songs, and nobody came in there like it wasn't like what I imagine would be like a Brian Wilson or a Pete Townsend thing where somebody's like, you're going to play that, you're going to play this. It's like the person who wrote the song would basically step up to the mic and, in our practice space and start playing the song and singing it. And then everyone would be like, oh, it'd be cool if it was faster, or we should do a break here, or what about a bridge, or let's make this one a little bit noisier. And it was kind of like happening in real time, which is really extraordinary, I guess.
Yes.
But it was a lovely experience. Like there were very, in all the time we were together, there were very rare moments of like ego issues. Um, I mean, in close quarters, people are going to get on each other's nerves, I think, particularly touring, but
Well,
like,
yes, the van.
yeah, yeah. But we kind of like all came from these different, disciplines, and like Dave is just like, he understood music in a more like learned fashion than I could say, at least for myself. And Dan just writes the most amazing lyrics ever. And Peter was a fantastic like engineer and also a great songwriter and great singer. So like I think we all kind of egged each other on to like, oh, I want to play guitar as well as Dave, or I want to write lyrics as well as Dan, or I want to,
Right.
I want to get my voice to sound a little better. Like if you if you look at the single and you go to the last record, it's like it's the same band, but it's like really become this really thoughtful version of itself. Very like,
Yes.
yeah, we kind of grew into this little bit of a four-headed beast.
Because when you were doing that Space Mountain, this was
Yeah.
91. I
Yeah.
mean, was the musical landscape, had that started to sort of give the band new ideas or things like, because we'd had sort of like bands like the Pixies and Throwing Muses on 4AD records in the late 80s. Obviously,
Yeah.
Bleach had come along, but, it was a so-so album, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
I mean, I quite liked it, but, it was very niche because John Peel,
Yeah.
our go-to DJ, played, Sub Pop 100, which was quite a great, um, album actually. Yeah, so I just wondered if you were starting to think, God, listen to these new bands.
For
This is a
sure, man. You're influenced by everything you hear. So like we had our things that we always held on to, like, you know, Devo is a huge influence on the band that you might never know it, but it's a huge thing. And I know Dave, and I think we all were like into the Meat Puppets at one point. So we
right.
were kind of like, oh, we want to do more like kind of fun guitar things. And I guess like, bands like Dinosaur Jr., like cranking it up a little bit.
Yes.
So yeah, we were definitely influenced. There was a lot of SST bands that influenced us. We were good friends with Dave Rick from Phantom Tollbooth and Bongwater, so that was a huge thing where,
Oh, I loved Bongwater
oh
actually.
my God, the best.
Was
The
that
best.
Kramer and
Yeah.
Magnuson?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. God, what a lovely.
Yeah, we recorded a version of Amp Music with Kramer, which was one of the funniest experiences I've ever had in my life.
Right.
Because he's definitely like, I don't, I think it, it was for a it was for a new wave compilation album by our friends at Tanis Root, who used to do everyone's t-shirts, and they gave everyone a little bit of money, I think, and we chose Kramer, and we went to Kramer and we did Ant Music. And
Oh, yes. I've been listening to Dear Old Ant music today.
yeah. Well, because we
God.
were also, in high school, Adam Ant was like, I mean, I watched him come up in a tall ship up the Hudson to play at the pier, and he was like firing off cannons. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. We saw Madness, we saw the Clash there, we saw the Go-Go's. Yeah. a lot of crazy shows at that pier.
Right. So there was that, yeah, the compilation that features Ant
Yeah.
Music and your other.
So we go out at that point. Noise New York was located in New Jersey. Kramer moved into this house, and he found a house that had a studio that looked like it was from the 70s. It was immaculate, and it was like a whole big like attachment to the house. And we went in there and we were like, he's like, "What are you playing?" I'm like, "Amp music." He's like, "Okay, set up your guitars," and had our guitars set up in like 10 minutes. He's like, "Run through it." We run through it, and we're like, "Okay, I think we could do it better." And he was like, "Yeah, you got it."
Right.
So like, it was probably like a half hour experience.
Yes,
Um,
because I think he'd worked on Galaxy 500 as well, hadn't he, at
oh
once?
yeah, sure. Well, Galaxy 500, another like that was like one of our peers for sure, man. I mean, those guys we'd see quite often in New York area, and we absolutely loved them. But it's also one of these funny things where like when you're in a band, and we had kind of predated them by like 2 years, and they came in and kind of like it seemingly just leapfrogged past us.
Yes.
And understandably, in retrospect, like there was every reason for that to happen because they had such a well-honed sound. It's not like four voices like in our band competing and creating all these different type of genre things, which I think is cool. But at the time, I remember we were all kind of like, wow, Galaxy like 500. This is and we loved them. We thought they were a great band, but we were also kind of like, I think that's probably the moment of that creep for me settling in of like, are we good enough? Like,
Right.
is what we're, but I loved what we were doing and it felt honest to us. But I think every band probably comes into that, right? At some point, you're like, oh, I really dig what this band is doing, but how do we get there and still be ourselves,
Right. Yes.
right? How do we, you know, that's the story of every band, right? I'm
I would
listening to,
imagine. And I guess there's a bit of an imposter syndrome as well, sometimes thinking,
oh, yeah, don't even get me started on that. That's in some ways my life story, although I think at my age now I've made my peace with it and it kind of makes me laugh, but there's forever that feeling of like, um, am I like, why am I doing? Should I be doing like, do I deserve to be doing this, or do people take me seriously? And it ultimately doesn't matter, right? Because if you're fortunate enough to have like a situation where you can creatively do things and people will listen to it, even if it's the smallest amount of people, you're already way ahead of the game, right?
well,
Because
yes, well, quite.
yeah, how
Yes,
many
I guess
bedroom artists are there, right?
there
Yeah.
must, well, yes, unless you're Morrissey from the Smiths, and then
Right.
you believe you're genius, which was,
Right.
was probably one of my bands of the 80s, really, the Dear Old Smiths. I find them
Yeah,
very
yeah. They're
exciting.
great.
They're very good. So Angel Food, was that, again, that's your penultimate album. Was that generally a good experience for the band? Was that
Angel
still,
Food was, I think, in some ways for me, it was like a high watermark for the band because it was our second time at Fort Apache. It was our second time with Lou. I think our songwriting kind of went to a whole new level. We kind of knew what we wanted to do when we went in. We were really well rehearsed. Um, and I think it was just one of those albums where everyone just really delivered like probably the highest caliber of like a hypno song you could deliver at that point. Like it felt like we were firing on all cylinders. We felt really good about it. And Fort Apache was a blast because the environment there was very conducive to being creative and taking chances. And, I don't know if I'm repeating myself now, but we had Lou Giordano producing us, who was the sound man for Mission of Burma, I believe, right? Was the
right?
sound man, but he was a tour guy. And then he went out on tour with Husker Du. So he was like this kind of god of tone and sound to us, and he was just a lovely guy to work with and so encouraging and so into what we were doing, and he came out to our shows when we would play out in Boston area. Trying to think, Middle East, that's where he play at the Middle East, which is a pretty
Right.
popular out there. And he would take notes and he'd be like, "Hey, I like this and this is really cool, and when we do this, we can get the guitars even more amped up, or we could quiet them down, or why don't you put a glockenspiel on this or something, Like he had kind of he allowed for that creativity. So
God, that's fantastic. I think Pink Pink Floyd had a lot of kind of sort of producers. I think it was Alan Parsons, wasn't it? Dear old Alan Parsons.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was quite influential in the studio. I think they relied on other people to sort of bring it together sometimes, which was quite an interesting idea, actually. So,
It's funny because we never like Lou, as much as he was a producer on those records, and then our buddy Chris also produced some of that stuff with Lou, like the band produced just as much because we all, and I mean, particularly Peter was always behind the board, always had an idea about something, and it was encouraged. Like if somebody said, "Hey, let's open up a piano and just strum the strings across the piano as someone holds a chord," like everyone was like, "That's a great idea." Even if it wasn't, we try it, you know?
yes. Well,
Yeah.
it's great. So when you came to do the last album, Altered States, had you then realized this was going to be your last project, or
No,
was it not that clear?
no, it wasn't. But I think we knew it would probably be our last for Alias. And I think we also kind of maybe unconsciously felt like I actually think it's a pretty good record, right? But I in some ways I can understand it seems almost maybe is it a little rushed? I don't know. It's like time heals all that. So when you hear it, you're like, oh, this sounds great to me. But like I think at the time, if we had given ourselves like we were putting out an album every year, right? For like five
Yes.
years, which is, I mean, I'm sure other bands do it too, but like we were doing this every year. And I think by the time we got to that last one, we were probably about to pivot into some other stuff. So it might not be our best effort, but I I still think it's a solid effort. But yeah, I don't think anyone thought it would be our last one because after that record, and then when we knew that it was kind of kaput for Alias, because we just weren't selling and we had issues with a lawyer that worked for them. And anyway, we started doing demos right away.
Right.
And some of those demos are like some of the best stuff we had done up to that point. So I think our intention was to continue, but life gets in the way. And Dave's wife became pregnant, and we're getting a little older. Like at that point, I'm probably almost 27, the ripe old age of 27.
Well, it does see, it's surprising, isn't it, really? Looking back, you
Yeah.
think, wow, that is so
In
young.
band years, right? That's like dog years. I'm like, if you make it in a band at 27, you're probably like 58 or something. But
Well, yes. No, I know. I expect when we were growing up, people like Paul McCartney and Mick Jagger, who probably might have been in, I don't know, early 30s, probably seemed very old then, didn't they?
right, right. I
But
know it's kind of a crazy it's a kind of a crazy thing, in some ways, like I think I'm the least qualified person to talk about any of this stuff because you go through phases, right? Like after when it was initially all kind of done, I was like, man, I don't want to do any music ever again because like it ended in such a weird kind of way, and I saw the how the industry kind of worked and I didn't really like it, and really I just wanted to be a creative. Um but then that feeling dissipated and I started doing music again, and I'm still very active. I still put out records and stuff under Dewclaw,
yes.
and
So,
Dan puts out under, but we all have bands, but like I guess my point was it changes until then finally, you're 60 and you're like, wow, that was a pretty good run.
Well, yeah,
But maybe you didn't always
absolutely.
see it that way.
So
Yeah.
what was so did it was it a difficult finish for the band? Did it sort of yeah, was it
No, in typical like maybe this is a guy thing, but like in typical like fashion for us, we just kind of like imploded. It was like a quiet explosion, you know? And there was talk and there were a couple minor, like not even arguments, but like weird things that might have happened. And then we just stopped talking. And it's more complicated than that, but it wasn't like there was a little bit of like, I guess this is over, but it wasn't really like, okay, we're done. You know, there was discussions on like, I think for a while Dave was thinking of leaving, and we were like, well, how are we going to go on? And I think Dave felt weird about that, and Dave and I are like childhood friends, and so I didn't want to move forward and hurt his feelings. Like it was a complicated situation, but
yes.
Dan and Peter went on to play in Special Pillow, which is like Dan's main project. And then we had like a couple hypno reunion shows through our friends Yolo Tango. They invited us to do Hanukkah show when they first started those. Um and we still like I've been in bands with Dan since Dave's recorded with me and I've recorded with Dan and unfortunately, Peter passed away in 21, so that changes that
Yes.
dynamic, obviously. Um,
That,
yeah, so sorry for
that's
rambling.
no, no, God, it's so well then how do you so what's your next period then from the 90s? Because obviously music again, the soundtracks sort of change, especially in America. My God, it's the sound gets so heavy and metal
Oh, it's
rap.
crazy, right?
And it ends with Woodstock 99 of 3 Days of Hell.
Yeah, yeah, Few Days of
So
Hell.
how did you sort of deal with that kind of God, this is definitely a different world now than what you had
Well,
in the
s-
late
so it's
80s?
funny when when Hypno was done, I didn't do anything with my guitar or music or whatever. And then like within 5 years after that, I had this job where I got a little bit of bonus money one year and I went out and bought a digital recording machine, like multi-track. And I just started recording things. And the things I recorded were very like quiet and very acousticy, but with guitar. So I think I kind of just reacted to that in my own world and did very like softer melodic things, but still kind of, I guess, with a punk aesthetic, if you could say that. But like, so that was my reaction. And I held on to that for years before I even put it out. And then finally I was like, oh, I'm going to put this out. And then I did more of that. And yeah. So
So
I think I just,
what was your first solo project then? Was that
oh, that would be Dewclaw. And it was a CD called Licked.
Licked? There you
Yeah.
go.
I don't think it's available anymore on Spotify because, I, my last album was put out by Dromedary Records in New York, a small label, great label. And I kind of wanted to take everything down and start fresh by like remastering things and putting it back up. And of course, like I took stuff down and then didn't put it back up because life got in the way. So it's still an ongoing
Right.
project.
And then you had another project called XL
Yeah.
Kings.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
that's Eamon, who put who at in his late 50s decides he wants to play drums. So I said, I'll play guitar with you. And then Eamon was the guy who put out the first Hypno LP. And then Dan joined us. And then this woman Ariella from this band, the Sloppy Heads, who's a great band out of New York, played keyboards with us. So we put out some singles and some CDs and but again, all like very like no PR behind it, just kind of put it out. We'd send it like to FMU radio and get some radio play there and try to find some freeform radio stations and just play gigs with, with our friends in New York. So we had like a little bit of a cool thing
yeah.
happening. Yeah.
So did you work with Yola Tango again then? Or not again, but a few
Yeah.
years later?
Yeah, so Yellow Tango, so James McNew helped put together the compilation. Like he selected the songs for it. I think there was like one or two that I might
Yes.
have added
S-
to his list.
So this is
So
the
for the
compilation
compilation.
Parallel Universe, which is coming out
Yes.
this summer
Yeah.
2026. So yeah,
Yeah.
so Ruff, just before we go into that then, so what was your then becomes your day job during this period? How do you then
Mm.
survive
Oh,
your
I
sort of
became a very professional. I was very buttoned up. I was like, okay, I want to, I want to quote unquote grow up. So what do I do? And I learned like Quark Express and desktop publishing, and then I work for supermarket tab, like circular, like
oh
tomatoes.
yes,
Right, I did all that, and then I got into agency work, which was horrible, horrible, like production work for agencies. And then I got into agency work for this company that did advertising for books. And then I got a job at Showtime Networks in the States, which is a big like cable company that had original product and put movies up there. So I ended up running like a print department. So I kind of learned all that after the band.
right.
Um, so and I stayed with that until it was no longer tenable, which was probably around COVID. Um, and yeah, so that's what I did. That's what I did to earn
Yes,
money.
Quark.
Yeah.
I haven't heard Quark for a long time because there was
Yeah.
PageMaker and Quark, wasn't
Yeah,
there,
sure.
on the
Yeah.
early Apple computers, which was
Yeah.
happy memories vaguely. Yeah, oh, that's interesting. And then 2021, you said, that's it, I'm moving west, to quote that famous song,
Yeah.
Go West.
Yeah. Well, my partner Annie and I have always like we try to have a creative projects all throughout our relationship, and we were like it's time to just do the most like let's do this for a living. Let's do something that's creative that so we she was really into growing flowers. I was like, well, let's do it. I'm on board. So we did that, and we have a really it's a pretty good life. Like, I record songs here. You know, we do our flowers, we do some creative flower stuff too. Like we're doing some installations now. So like it's a
Fantastic.
weird, I think I think I want whether or not anybody else would judge me in that way, I want to be a creative spirit. Like that's what I lean into. Yeah.
Well, in this day and age, it's good to focus on something very positive as well as creative, really, isn't it?
I agree. I
Because
agree.
otherwise, it's not going
I
to
want to be
fly.
a light. I don't want to be a
Yes,
vampire.
let's keep that shining, which is
Yeah.
good. This is a very nice combination, actually. And then, so how did so with this collection that has just come out,
Yeah.
has the band always been there bubbling in the background for you, or had you put it in the cupboard and completely forgot about it?
The band was there in the way that I felt like we had stuff that I was proud of that we did, but we didn't own any of it. So I was like, how do you get to own it? So I
Ownership of
tried,
music, that's very interesting, isn't it?
yeah, and especially in this day and age, like I don't know if anybody really cares if they own their music, but it still means something to me. But I try to when I had a little bit of money and a very little bit of money, I made an offer. They weren't interested in selling stuff back to me. And then 2.5 years ago, Delight called or sent an email out of the Cleveland Sky and said, "Do you want your masters back?" And I was like, "Sure." And I thought maybe does that mean I own them? And then I did research on that. Then some lawyer said, "No, you got to ask to own it." So I did that. And then I went to another lawyer who was actually cheaper and better. And then they said, right? Because that's always the way it goes. Your first lawyer is like, I've spent all this money for nothing. But then I'm not a wealthy person by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have unlimited reserves, but I beg, borrow, and steal. But this second lawyer was like, don't just ask for your master's back, ask for everything back. And I said, she's never going to go for that. He said, just try it. And I said, can we have everything back, the rights and the publishing? And she said, sure, you write it up. So I think for her, she's done with this point in her life. She doesn't want
Right.
to,
Well,
she
I
doesn't want
guess
it
yeah,
anymore.
from what you were saying there, had you expected it to be much more difficult?
Oh, oh yeah. We thought we'd never get this back again.
So I always find it fascinating. So were they in some storage place, your masters, just sitting on a
Yeah.
shelf?
Yeah.
And had she at that stage, had she been in the business, but then got to that point in life, as a lot of us do, where you think, actually, I just want to get rid of this stuff. It's no longer.
Well, I tell you, it's one of the few good things that's come out of having Trump for president is that I think she felt like I don't want to live in this country anymore, so I can't manage this warehouse of tape masters, So I'm
Right.
going to start giving them back so that we were the beneficiary of the idiocracy that's going
And
on.
then, so then she's just left the country.
I believe so. I don't want to say too much about the lights, but I think she decided like, yeah, I want to kind of just be done with all my business dealings and start afresh.
God, that's
Um,
amazing. So you got it all back in the post?
yeah, we got everything back. I figured out how to handle. I mean, not to take credit because I needed Dan and Dave too to sign off on a lot of stuff, but I just was like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm just gonna forge ahead, and if I do anything wrong, I'll figure it out. And we got Peter's son to be a part of it, which is great. Yeah, so we have it back, and we were like, okay, what are we gonna do? And this record was out in Norway 6 years ago, and we said, well, why don't, since we couldn't put it on the streamers, like let's redo it, let's put it out, do it properly, and like um get someone to help us like get the word out. So that's what we've been doing.
Right, because this has got quite a few bonus pieces, haven't they?
Yeah.
Previously unreleased demos,
Yeah.
which was quite interesting. Digging on Life being one,
Yeah.
and also another one which is the oh yes, Louis Armstrong was
Yeah,
another
Louis
one.
Armstrong demo. Yeah, and there's a couple in there that we like a Secret Star, which we did a little like video for of like found footage and stuff, and that was like that actually came out in Monster Records out in Europe, like in Spain, I think like 30 years ago or something. So we put that out. And there's two other songs I can't remember, Jim Pike and Embarrassment, which
Right,
are three songs that were part of that demo, those sessions after we lost our deal with Alias. So, and there's
right.
more where that there's more where that came from too. I don't know what the future looks like for the rest of that, but I think what our plan was like to kind of kick off this thing and like pretend and imagine that our legacy means enough to like put it back out and do it properly and like
So why do
if
you
we
get
want, yeah.
James McNew to compile it and not just within the band?
Well, it's funny. There's a couple of different stories about that. Dave seems to think James at one point said, if you ever put a compilation out, I want to do the song list. But I had also asked James and I approached Ira too, who's also a fan of the band, Ira from Yo La Tango, and James was like, "I'll absolutely select songs for you," and Ira said, "Oh yeah, I'll absolutely write something on the inside of the thing," which was very sweet of him. So yeah, so that's how we toured with them quite a few times. Like I've been doing their Hanukkah shirts, my wife and I, for like since I started doing them, and then with my wife, we continued this thing of doing all their Hanukkah shirts for years. And Dave played with James and Dump. I played with James and Dump once.
Right.
Dave, his side project, and so we knew them. We were like, and before that, James had a fanzine, and he was a fan of Hypno. This is before Yo La Tango, and then he was in this Boston band Christmas.
Right.
But I loved Christmas, one of my favorite bands ever, and he played with their last incarnation. And yeah, so and they would do a hypno song. They would do a hypno song as a cover, which blew my mind that any another band would play something that we
God,
wrote.
yeah, that must have been
So
very exciting.
oh yeah, it was cheap thrill. Like I mean, it was really exciting. It's more than a cheap thrill. It was very profound. I think it encouraged me to like be like, oh, okay, there are people there that like what I do enough to want to cover it, which was weird
Yes.
and
So
cool.
this
Yeah.
has been remastered by Kurt.
Yes. Yeah. So my buddy Fred Stromfeld from I Was a King out in Norway. That's a whole other crazy story. But in a nutshell, we were writing songs. I thought he was pranking me. I didn't know who he was, but we ended up writing a bunch of songs. We ended up recording them, and then he was like, "Let's start a label together." So we started this label, Cara. And we put out Ladybug Transistor reissue, uh, and a couple other records. This one by Jason Hen, and then another one by BMX Bandits. Um,
Right.
yeah, so we did these cool like things, and then we had a singles member only. You sign up and you get a single a month, and we had like oh god, so many cool people on there. Scott McCoy. We had Robin Hitchcock on a song. Like we just and it was really Frode. He had the connections to all these people, and then Yellow Tango did a thing on it, and there's probably like maybe 120 people in the whole world that even know about it, and they got to
Yes. Well, that's
purchase. Yeah.
so. Just tell us, what was that label that you were talking about?
Oh, that's Cara Records, Cara. I think there's still a presence on Bandcamp, but I think everything's like sold out. It's just kind of like floating out there in the ether.
God, that's so extraordinary, isn't there? There's so much to dig down and sort of
Yeah,
find. It's
yeah.
just,
I bring a lot of baggage.
I know, there's just, and you think, oh my God, this is an interesting rabbit hole to sort of wander down, isn't
Yeah,
it? So Ladybug Transistor, then.
yeah.
So that was another one of your album projects.
Well, that was this band that came after Hypno. I'm not in it, but a bunch of really talented people were doing these real kind of like just these really beautiful throwback to like 60s style like oh god, I don't even know, just orchestrated beautiful just
Right.
pop music. And they put out an album, Albemarle Sound. And that's Gary Olson who recorded that. He also did some stuff with Kevin Ayers, that his last solo record that other people eventually took that project over. But so Frode and I put out Albemarle Sound again. We reissued it. Yeah, and that album has since been reissued again. It's a fantastic album. It's really pastoral, beautiful pop record.
God, so the Kevin Ayers album, was that
On
the
Fairground.
right?
Yeah. Beautiful, another fantastic album. And I don't know like how much of what Gary did survives in that, but
Mm, yeah, God, he's
yeah.
been very prolific, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, no, Gary, yes. Gary, yeah, he makes the rounds. He does a lot of cool stuff. He recorded a band that Frode and I were in called Grand Union that is one of my favorite projects I've ever done, but it's only a handful of things that's seen light.
Just
We had a
amazing. Yes.
single that Hamish Kilgour did the artwork for from the Clean. Like crazy. Like I've had this weird.
Oh my God, Hamish, God, because I did an interview
Yeah.
with David recently, actually, on the
Oh
Clean.
wow, yeah, one of my all-time favorites.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, yeah, because this guy's done an amazing book about the Clean. You just have check it out because it's
yeah,
absolutely stunning. Yes, Hamish and David.
yeah.
Yes, that was very intriguing. God, I know there's so many little threads, aren't there, and stuff.
There's
So
a
the
rabbit
thing,
hole. Yeah,
there are so many. It's so creative. So this is a record that you put out on Bandcamp, and this is
yeah,
on your own. Is it on your own label, by the way?
yeah. Essentially, it's it's the Kara record that we're blowing out whatever vinyls left, which I think we've sold out on, and then it's under our label, which I believe we're calling it Hypnolovewheel, something or other. I can't remember what I can't even remember the name of our own label, but we it's essentially our label because we own everything with it, so we had to just make sure we put it under Hypnolovewheel umbrella. And then, moving forward when we do these other editions of like we kind of want to put out now that we have masters like remastered versions of things with maybe like some extra bonus tracks or whatever. It probably will be all us,
Right.
but we're open to people who might be interested in licensing it. So I don't know, like we're not we don't look at it as a money making venture. It's more just like we want to get it back out into the
Well,
world
I think
properly.
also at this stage in life, one is quite into archiving as well, thinking, yes, it's
Yeah.
going to get lost if we don't. Seriously,
Yeah.
no one's going to be able to archive it or have the time, or it's the
Yeah.
labor of love. But let's just make sure the legacy and the band is there.
That's exactly what it is. It is a labor of love. Thank
And
you for saying that, because that's what it is.
but
Yeah.
it's
It should
it's
all be
it's
about that,
and if
right?
and if you do anything for love, it's obviously a good thing to do. So
I
you're on the
believe so.
you're on the
Yeah.
right path, as we say. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so this is coming out, and you've done vinyl, you've got
Yes.
a digital download, I'm guessing, and
Yeah.
no CDs. Is that correct?
No, no CDs, but it's funny. It's uh, the the reaction. I mean, we didn't have many to sell to begin with, but they sold out rather fast. So we were kind of like, oh wow. So I've been in touch with Frode. I was like, do you have any more in Norway? Or you have a hidden stash? So I think he believes he does. So that's gonna somehow make its way to the States, and then we'll probably try to clear out all that vinyl.
Right.
That's a whole other story, man. He was involved with a record pressing plant that he co-owned. So it's a crazy story. And he's still kind of untangling himself from all that. But I thought he
Yeah.
had given me everything that he had left, but I think he has some more. So we're gonna try to
Yeah.
find that out, put it out there. Because I love the vinyl. I love to sell vinyl. So
Well, it's I must admit, I haven't got a record player, but you do sometimes feel that one's life is slightly missing, something quite
yeah.
tricky actually. So yeah, so you've got vinyl records sitting in someone's warehouse in Norway.
Yeah, I believe so. He's gonna check. He's pretty certain he does have that. Yeah.
But this
I'll know
won't
by
have
July.
the same track listing as this new collection.
It will be identical. It is identical. It is the record we are selling are those records. So when we first put it out, um, we didn't we didn't do anything other than just announce it on like, a Facebook page.
Yes.
And it found its people, but then the whole record thing that we put together, and particularly that record pressing plant, kind of collapsed in a way. So I think everything just kind of halted. So um I received like maybe a year or two back like a bunch of these records, and I was like, oh, I've got all these records and I got to figure out something to do with them. And I never in a million years thought I'd be selling them. It's like, oh, maybe I'll put them on Discogs or something. But
Right.
so it's kind of exciting to at least,
But
I
the
think we
one
put up
on
like,
but the one
yeah.
on Cara Records
Yes.
has like 15 tracks. This new one that you've just brought out has got 22 tracks.
Um, yes. So there's a difference between the digital download. There's extras on the digital download
Right. Oh, but the
in both
vinyl
cases.
records are the same.
Yeah, yeah. So like the vinyl record, which I have I have a copy here just in case I need it for reference. Yeah, it has like this is the back of it, right?
Right.
Front. And
So where
the
did you get the new? So where? God, I'm
yeah,
slightly obsessed with this. So where did
yeah.
you get the new ones printed? The
Well, they're not new ones. They're all the stuff that was printed in Norway. So
right
they're essentially, if you get this, it says like, oh, this is Kara Records, but it's
from
actually,
2020, whereas the new.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the reason why we went with it is because we were like, if we're gonna reintroduce the band to streaming properly for the first time, like we never really had good representation on streaming other than Apple, which is a whole other story. But
Yes.
So we were like, well, let's do like a child's guide to Hypnolovewheel. Like we'll just put out the compilation that never really had a chance to make the rounds.
Yes, I've got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously there's just three of the four members left. Are you sort of in touch to sort of, are you all excited with this project?
Oh yeah, no, we're totally in touch. In fact, to the point that we got invited to play a festival in New York, this thing called Drum Fest in upstate New York, and it's got all these like, it's a lot of old timers, but great like 80s and 90s bands that are all converging in the Catskills, and we're one of them. We will be playing a show.
So was it called Drum Festival?
Drum Fest.
Fest. In
DROMFEST.
New York or
Yeah.
and oh well there you go. So who have you drafted in to
So
do
Dave has a friend in North Carolina who's a drummer who will be joining us. So, we're all practicing separately. We're going to converge in New York like a week before and have suitable multiple practice sessions, and then take to the stage on Sunday night and hopefully deliver something that we can be proud of.
well this is very exciting, I have to say.
Oh, that's very kind of you. You're too kind. You're too
Well,
kind.
it's gonna. So just sorry, I missed the date. When's this date, by the way?
Oh, so that's Labor Day weekend. And I think we're playing the 6th or whatever the Sunday is for Labor Day weekend. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
No, God, I don't even know what month it is. I'm
You know what?
sorry.
Hold on. I just opened up my calendar. It's September, and that would be we are playing September 6th. The festival is from the 4th through the 6th. And it's delightful, man. I played it with Dewclaw, and it's like several hundred people, and there are probably just as many band members as there are audience members. So it's truly like
A,
amazing.
a groovy experience.
Oh, it's delightful, man. He's got like some kind of, rock and roll movie premieres. He's got like rock and roll tangent art shows. There's a record store in town that will be selling stuff related to the bands. He broadcasts it live on his radio thing. I think all that information is at the Dromedary record site. So
Dromedary.
it's like taken off, and like last year Yellow Tango joined in. So it's like I think I think in the last couple of years it just gets bigger, bigger every year. He's been asking us for years to do it, and it we just didn't know how we could do it. And then finally, I think because we're putting this record out, we're like, if we don't do it now, like what this is the time to do it. So,
You
and we're
just
all
got,
excited,
but
because we're all making the rounds on podcasts, and we're all telling our stories, and then we're listening to it and be like, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. Oh, what do you know?
yeah,
So it's like
it's good.
telephone, like learning
But
about
does the
ourselves.
band have a social media platform site to
We
apart
do.
from Bandcamp?
We do. We have an Instagram account,
Ah,
and I keep that
classic
pretty updated. Like I
info.
post all the podcasts up there, and I also, I mean, Dave and Dan definitely weigh in, but I'm kind of managing the majority of it. So I post some old pictures of us up there and tell some goofy stories. Yeah, it's fun. I was not thrilled to begin with because I was like, how do but I think surrendering to the experience has been very positive and, for lack of a better word, I think for me, very healing because it's kind of like I've been in touch with Dave and Dan forever. We are always in touch, but we never really talk too much about this stuff. So to suddenly like have a platform where we have to talk about it has been
Yes.
very pleasant, which it could have easily gone some weird way, but it's been the most positive
Well,
experience.
yeah, from my sort of experience of interviewing bands, I think people have really enjoyed it. They've done their thing in the 80s
Yeah.
or 90s, and then just had to move on. You know, it was like that was our
Yeah.
5 years. We did the whole period, the honeymoon period, the single, the album, the
Yeah.
tour,
Yep.
the second, third album, and then it just wasn't kind of happening. We were broke, financially having no money, dynamically feeling kind of
Yeah.
spent, and also, like nobody be particularly interested, possibly being on an indie label or possibly a major, but having that moment, you're in the NME, you're in Melody Maker, people
Yeah.
want to talk to you, to the moment where you bring an album out and you think even the fans aren't that interested. So
Yeah.
why are we doing this? And we've not even got any money to blow on anything. And and then it's sort of just get on with life. But then having that time to reflect back, and then sort
Yeah.
of appreciate that moment and appreciate that your younger self and what you had to go through and what you did. You kind of think,
Right.
actually, that was pretty damn cool. That you change that narrative in the mantra in your brain, don't you, sometimes, and think,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
actually,
guess because you,
that was pretty damn good. I kind of,
yeah, you take
yes,
stock a little bit maybe, and you're removed enough of it, right? I mean, look, you're we're constantly evolving, right? Your body, I mean, whatever I am now, I don't even know if any of those cells even exist from when I was younger.
well,
So I'm a
absolutely,
carbon copy of a carbon copy. But I think for me, like, I don't know, I almost find it amusing that have had the experiences I've had in my life, and I don't. It sounds almost like I'm being cute or something, but I don't mean it that way. I just mean like, you look back, and sometimes when you actually think about what you've done, it's surprising if you actually think about it.
yes,
You're
this is
like, oh,
true.
yeah, So
And
it's a
also
cool, it's
yeah, and also
cool.
what you have chosen to focus on as well sometimes, and then what you haven't focused on, which you could focus on, which is probably better or more enjoyable, rather than the that irritating moment or that sort of thing that was difficult. It seems to
Yeah.
sort of take up much more of our consciousness than, oh yeah, that person was really nice, I'd forgot about them, I don't know why, but I've always focused on this irritating person that was a bit of a pain, or
For
or
sure. Yeah, that's human nature, right?
it
And
is
then
human nature, I'm
yeah.
afraid. But there you
Yeah, and
go.
also like it's just you don't know when you're in the eye of the storm. You don't really understand it. You can't
No.
see it, right? So you're like when you get older, you can at least form maybe a more cohesive opinion than when you're in the middle of the maelstrom, right? When you're in the middle of the thing that's flying out of control or whatever it feels like. You get some perspective and suddenly you're like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought, or actually that was quite good, or
That was, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
or how did
Oh,
I survive that?
and be
Right.
kinder to yourself, like, well,
Yeah, that's important.
we made the best decision that we thought we were making at the time from that.
Yeah.
But now I'm older and thankfully a bit more life experiences, you might have made a different one. But you got to appreciate your younger self and think, oh, well, you did all right, kid. Don't worry about it. We got
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I think young Steve, I'm pretty proud of young Steve. I mean, sometimes I think, oh, you idiot, why'd you sign that? Or why'd you do this? But I'm like, you know what, don't worry, it all worked out.
It, it's right, we're here now, aren't we? This is all good. But I'm really pleased. I'm sort of, I'll go and check out your Instagram page, but
Oh, please
also
do.
I'll keep in touch with Howard, and I'll post the link up so he'll be able to sort of yes, increase your
Oh, thank you, David.
awareness.
This has been such a joy chatting with you. Really
Yes,
pleasure.
well, I hope it
Real
goes
pleasure.
really well, and I hope you yeah, it's
It's
funny.
it's already going great. Like I think wherever it is from here is like all gravy. It's like I'm kind of
Absolutely. We got the summer and you got this gig, which I think will be just the most amazing. So will this be the first gig you play for a very long time?
since 2001.
Right.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
it's a
going to be
long
amazing.
time. Yeah,
It's
muscle
amazing.
memory.
It'll be fine. But
Yeah, I
look,
think so.
I'll let you get on. But thank you ever so much for your time. This has been amazing, Stephen. And take care.
Oh, you're too kind.
Okay.
A true
Yeah.
pleasure.
See you later. Bye
Take care,
bye.
my friend.
Bye
Bye.
bye. And that was me in conversation with Stephen Hunking, talking about his life in music. This has been the C86 show. David Eastaugh. Have a great week. Stay safe.